Hello and welcome to the 108th episode of Rambling Weekly. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing all right. As you can see, I still got the fire. Yeah, I've been intending to shave it off, but I don't. I'm just like, I'm too lazy to do that. So, yeah. Yeah, get that. And it's been cold. Like not like terribly cold, but cold enough where I'm like, this could be of some use still. So it's like, keep it for another couple weeks or so. So, yeah, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. I know just the past week there's been a lot of snow that's come through the area, so that's nice. Seen a couple snowmen. That's always exciting. That is how simple my life is. But yeah, that's all I've got going on yet. But yeah, let's see what's going on. I guess Friday. I don't know how I hit it because it was on a very busy road, but I hit something that punctured a tire, so I had to get new tires. And I needed to get new tires anyways, but I had to get all new tires, so that was an exciting expense to have to pay for a little sooner than I would like to have. But thankfully I'm in a position that I was able to do that without it going, oh no, this is going to make things really concerning. So so that's nice, I guess. But yeah, it was, I hit it. It was probably about a quarter mile from work. And I hit it and I was like, oh no, what was that? And so I'm checking the tire pressures on the car because I've got the little dial for it and stuff. And I see it go from 34, 33, 32. I'm like, oh, phooey. So, but yeah, thankfully nothing bad happened with that. And no. Like that's the important thing, outside of just spending money for tires sooner than I wanted to. What else has been going on? Game wise, I think I might have mentioned it last week. I kind of shifted over to playing through Final Fantasy 12. It's the first time playing it, so it is interesting to see it. Oh yeah, I think it mentioned, like, it's kind of, you can see the transition from 10 to 13 with how like 12's playing out so far. I feel, at least like how it presents itself. I don't really like the hunts. I don't necessarily hate them, but it's, and maybe using teleport stones is the way to do it, but it seems like it's a finite resource at the moment, so I don't feel like wanting to teleport to places. But it takes a bit of time, and I don't dislike how it presents itself, and I do like the environment, even though I don't really have too good of opinions on. From what I remember, and it could be not correct, but they had inserted Vaughn. And stuff. I've heard that, but I've also heard that was not correct. But like that Vaughn and Pinello were late additions to appease Squex and to try to aim for the young fan audience. I don't necessarily hate Vaughn because it's like, okay, yeah, trying to kind of got the Aladdin syndrome for him. Sort of, kind of, yeah, wanting to be great, and being a street urchin, a street rat, but so I don't necessarily dislike that, but it does feel like he is kind of and understandably so. He's a kid compared to the characters that I have so far, which is just Fran, Balthier, and Bosch. So it's like, yeah, here are people who are either twice or 10 years older, so you can tell, and it's cool to see that, and not be harumphing about it. But it's also like, I want to play as those guys as opposed to Vaughn. But it's kind of it's why I think Lost Odyssey is very endearing as well, because you are playing kind of the beleaguered old man. So it's like, and then oh yeah, sure, you have a couple of them that are younger that are like, but they oh, it is it's I'm still too early to really have a good idea of how I feel about the story. I am a bit annoyed that they didn't take the I don't even remember what the heck the thing's called off the top, like the magicite, the glowy stone that was just kind of chucked into like all the other belongings and stuff at one point. I was like, I was kind of hoping that would have been taken, so then it would force something else to go on. But then it's like, well, maybe if it had, something else would have happened. I don't know, until I know what's all going on with it. So yeah, but it is nice to revisit the lands of Evil Ice, what have you. Yeah, so that is that. And if I remember correctly, it's like around the time of, for those of Final Fantasy Tactics, the OG Tactics game, that's like around the time of Saint Ajora, maybe right before or something, if I remember correctly. I'd heard about it. I don't remember it ever coming up in the game yet, but yeah. So, been playing a little bit of that. I'm nearly finished with As You Wish. It's been endearing to read that book. I talked a lot about like Andre the Giant, and just a lot of just the back end stuff, and Wally Shawn and Robin White, and going through and just discussing the people themselves behind the scenes and going through the filming of it. And I think right now I'm about to get to the mid part of where they're filming, and some troubles arise. Like at the one point where Wesley gets conked in the back of the head trying to escape with Buttercup. I think he actually does get knocked in the noggin hard enough that he had to go to the hospital and stuff. So yeah. So I think it's about to get to that point and stuff. So, but it's building up to what it feels like it's building up to is that fight between Inigo and Wesley there, the Man in Black. I think that's kind of going to be like the climax of the retelling of different things and stuff, because that is also filmed towards the end of the filming production and stuff. So, which makes sense because they were trying to. He mentions it beforehand. They're being trained by two incredible different teachers, and give them enough time to be able to learn stuff so you can actually be proficient enough. And I think we get into problems with that with more modern stuff where it feels like either there's no weight behind things because of like the power scaling of stuff. So it's like, hey, kapow, and it just sort of like doesn't really CGI. I don't know, if you go like with a Superman flying punch sort of thing, it doesn't quite feel, because it's so outlandish, at least to me, it just doesn't register in the brain. I'm like, okay, sure. And maybe that also is because the sound and other visuals aren't doing enough to try to convey that better to me, or I'm just too simple, smooth brain to be like, oh. Or it feels either that, where it's a lot of damage but not a lot of feedback, or as my one friend described it as a paper bag hitting another paper bag. bag. It just doesn't. It's the same thing with like gunplay, or like with westerns, where you can hear it with just the like. There is something to audio, and sometimes it's an unfortunate thing because in the sense that like you really like fantastic audio or sound design helps elevate so well that even though it does so, it doesn't really ever get the more notice. So it's like, yeah, if you do an excellent job, it helps really enhance the film in its own subtle ways. If it does a good job, it just kind of flies under the radar. If it does a bad job, then it's like, wow, it's not very good. Tisk tisk. So, yeah. But no, I've been enjoying reading that, and then what I'll do is, after I finish that, I will read and make my notes and do my review for Moss Flower. Let's start getting back into those. Oh, and speaking of which, I nearly finished the writing for the 6th video for genealogy. I don't know how much more I've got to it, but I've finished up like beating the final boss, writing about that. So it's now kind of talking a little bit after that and stuff. So it shouldn't be terribly much more, and then the recording and get that done. I've said it before, but I'm going to stitch them all together. However, how I'm going to stitch them all together, it's going to be probably a little. There'll be more, so it'll be put together as one big thing, but interjected throughout each chapter, and then probably even at the beginning of it as well as at the end of it, there's going to be a whole bunch of new stuff that I don't even talk about it with it. I don't know. I figured that'd be a way to do that, partially because to keep things, keep something going out there, but more importantly to I don't have space. My computer is a tiny little box, in the sense of let's see here. I have two drives that are both 250 gigs. One has 37 gigs free, and the other one has 61 gigs free. And now, mind you, this is because I took off some games and stuff, so I do have now 100 gigs of space. However, for example, oops, hey, stop, cease. For example, just for the chapters 10 and the epilogue recordings and stuff, that took up 100 gigs. Because of how the settings that I used. Now I could change the settings, but I am an idiot and I'm afraid I'm gonna mess it up, so I just leave it alone as it is. So yeah, so I don't have a ton of wiggle room to do that. Plus, like, I don't even record everything. Like, I'll record snippets of it, and it's like, especially if I'm just like getting units into placement and stuff, it's like, we'll just put these in place, but we won't record it. And then, if the enemy's if there's engagement, I try to record it and stuff, just because there's times where it's like, yeah, there's no need to be showing this. It's a slow affair. So that done a little bit more writing, not as much as I would like. I was hoping to get more, but partly with just obligations at night, that and it'd be like the obligations at night, and then the times I would be working really long, and so I'd be like really tuckered out. It's just it's frustrating. And I guess I'll do the recap, because we were 3 weeks off for holidays and stuff, and then we just went back into doing more tabletop stuff. And it was another fight, and this was like their like kind of boss fight for their dungeon that they've been going through, and I was very, very proud and happy to see him because, and I've probably mentioned this before, but everybody, for the most part, is rather new at playing stuff, and not only that, but for the most part, we've only been meeting once every other week. For a short span, it was once every week for like a couple months, and then we pushed it back just because of obligations that everybody has. But every other week, and we only do it for about, at most, 2 hours. So it is, like, you know, there other people might have similar things, and they might have it even shorter, where they only like meet once a month and stuff. But you know, you're trying to remember details about your characters that aren't. It's not the priority of things to remember. It's a game after all. They're there to have fun. But if you can remember those sorts of things, it can make the fights a little bit more involved and a little bit more intense. For example, one character has a cloak that allows them to, because we're playing Dragonbane, and in Dragonbane, A, the numbers are very suppressed, B, you have hit points and willpower points, and willpower points are what you pull from to do skills and magic and that sort of thing. Well, I made an item that allows to basically do things as like a reaction, that like a free action, I guess you could say, to do either double their movement for a round, do a double attack, or cause the incoming attack to have to roll with disadvantage. And the fight prior, he had this and he didn't use it whatsoever. And I reminded him after the fight. I was like, yeah, you could have used that. That might have helped a little bit, because he was hurt, and I think he was down to like 1 HP. So, but this time he used it, and his character, it feels like he wants to play a little more heroically, and just kind of not necessarily tank, but be the hero, the shining blade, or at least being very aggressive and doing a lot of damage dealing. However, how his character rolled, like in the sense of his stats and what he has, doesn't necessarily attribute to that fully. However, he has a lot of things that he can do to be a utility, like to almost be like a jack of all trades kind of thing, except for, if he spends things right, he can do really well with it. So he used that very well this last fight. I was very happy to see that. Everybody else did really well with using stuff, because none of them are magic users, and it was a lot of like, hey, if you don't have magic or anything or fire, like in a sense of a torch, you were not doing damage to certain things. And so they were like, oh, and they figured out how to get around that and stuff, or get through it. And I was very happy and very, very proud with them on that. So it was nice to see. So yeah, it was good, a good fun time. So they got through that, and then that was it, because it was a big old fight. And with tabletop games, that's kind of, it's a hard thing to do, to balance. And I think unless you either put in a hard, hey, you've got 10 seconds to, which in the sense of that might be kind of a little too much, but maybe in the sense of maybe like a sci-fi thing or something, you can get away with it. But I don't know, having hard limits, time limits, might be a bit frustrating, because then it's like, oh yeah, but yeah, no, everybody they were doing good, and they were utilizing the skills that they have and stuff. So it made it all a bunch of fun. So I was happy. They seemed happy. Yeah. Can't go wrong with that. And it's not like, being malicious. And it's like, oh, they're beating me all the time. Because that's not good. I can be cheeky, but it's more of like, all right, I'm gonna be cheeky. Like, I know, like, there were a couple enemy units that had the ability to control the player character. If the player character failed a certain role, and I don't like that. Like, that's I hate that in charm in games and stuff. So it's like, no. Like, so I'll do some other things that they can do, either like trying to blind them for a turn or something like that, as opposed to, oh hey, you are gonna lose all agency for a round. Enjoy just sitting there as I tell you what to do. Like, that's not fun. That's lame. Like, that's all there is to it. It's not fun. It's lame. It's boring. Patooey, fooey, whatever. Blue. So, but yeah, that is what I got for you on that front. Now we're gonna get into the topic. As soon as I write down the time for this topic, because I feel bad because I've been trying to do it and then I forget sometimes, and then I don't do it, and then yeah. Okay. So the topic for today, I'm going to talk a little bit about, and this is this is something I know I have done before, where kind of psychotically, as this notion of withholding oneself, as if being better than other people, and it's an attitude that it pops up, you see it, and it's a reaction to things I understand. We talked about it a couple episodes ago about the transactional transgressions, considering relationships and stuff as transactional, and you get into a problem with that. And I think that's also a mindset due to boiling everything down to money, cost, and stuff. Because then, if that's the case, everybody just becomes a cog to, oh well, if it costs $10 for this person, then any person can do it, kind of thing. That's a very generic way to look at it. Boiling it down in that way, it does turn into, well, if whatever the cost is for somebody, the person is interchangeable. It's not so much the person, because they're being jammed into the machine, into the cogs of everything. But that is that's a bad no. That's no bueno. But more on the idea of like, understandably so, when somebody's wronged. Whether it's through malicious intent or what they consider as somebody who just drains them, and what feels like, oh, they're not providing me with anything. Once again, I think it kind of seeds into that transactional bit. They get to a point where it's like, well, you know what? I am going to withhold the gift of self. I will not be kind to them. And that, it speaks a bit, not a bit, but I think it speaks a lot more to the individual who's making that decision, as opposed to whoever it is they're making that decision toward. And yeah, this was a while ago. I certainly felt this way. It was just like in person. I was like, if you're all gonna be obnoxious, I'm just not gonna deal with you. And then you just turn into whatever this is. Caveman troglodyte. Not very sageful, but it is it is that, like, that is a very cut your nose off to spite your face sort of action, because like, I get it if the ones that they're doing, if somebody's doing this towards somebody who has done something unforgivable, and then you get into, well, what is unforgivable? And I feel like we don't have a good agreement as a society as to what is unforgivable. We have people who seem to be very, very, like, just XYZ doing these things means, nope, you're done. Not even gonna bother with you. And then you have more people who are like, well, no, PDQ. Yes, PDQ. These are the things that are unacceptable, and they exhibit the same sort of behaviors, but just for different things. And then you have people who are very lenient, or gracious, magnanimous. And then people who allow way too much of that, to where it's a little... I think there's a difference between being gracious and being used as a doormat. But... and it's a lot of murkiness, and we do not have any agreement on where Unforgiven lies. where is it at? And in those instances, it's one thing, yeah, if like I said, malicious harm or something. And I feel like, if it's nothing terribly egregious, and I know I've said this in other things, but if it's nothing too egregious, that you give an individual an opportunity to prove you otherwise, right? You know, for example, my brother can be a bit of a schmuck. He can be a bit cheeky, a bit abrasive, and it bothers my mother to no end. And it's like, well, you know, and vice versa. Like, there's things that she does that bothers him to no end. He has a bad habit, though, of just, and I think he's actually gotten a lot better about it, though, especially in the last couple of years, it feels like. But he for a long time would just kind of be like, nope, the door's shut, and it is locked until I say otherwise. And sometimes you do need to do that, create that just distance, and not necessarily because one directional. Partially, it could be in a recognition that's like, I cannot even. I cannot even. And perhaps there is that. I'm not in his head to know these things, but the recognition that, like, I cannot be better attitude towards you. You've strained me. You know, you've strained the muscle. It needs to reheal before we can try this again. And so I think it's when you, and sometimes though, when you leave that door shut, it becomes really tough to open back up. And I think that's where we've got to be better about being able to open the door, and allow that connection to come through. With that, like, say you do something nice for somebody. Like, for example, like, I will share odds and ends of things that I get, and pass them around. For example, like for the little Secret Santa thing I got some delicious burdock tea, and I got 40 bags of it, and so I was like, I'll share a few of those with some of my coworkers who I know like tea and stuff, so or just like other odds and ends, because they like tea and they might have an interest in it and be like, oh cool, new tea, I kind of like it. Or they might be like, it's kind of weird, I don't think so. I know a lot of them were like, it smells earthy. And I was like, that's just a polite way of saying it smells like dirt. uh, but you know, if I'm like frustrated with work or something, or with those coworkers for whatever reason, it's not like I really talk to enough to to warrant that just because of my position. But if you know, if for something like that small, like what is it really hurting to be like, oh well, these people are ungrateful, they don't ever give me anything in return, yada yada yada, or what have you. How like I said, that highlights more on, that would highlight more on me if I were to be like, oh, I'm not giving them anything, they don't do anything for me. That would yeah, it's kind of like when you act bad, or when you do an act, people kind of see how you are. However, if you do an act in retaliation to something, or if you don't do a retaliatory act, people will have a much better idea of who you are. Like, it's the Deep Space Nine thing. It's easier to be an angel in paradise sort of notion. Like, if you are in the dregs, and you are like, no, I don't know. If you do that because you're in a bad area where people mistreat you, while understandable, it is it still reflects on you. Like, you're not escaping. No man is an island unto himself, nor woman for that matter. But no person, no individual is an island unto themselves. Yeah, and then of course, you know, I do feel like, you know, it doesn't have to be some major thing, and that's the thing as well, right? If you do a kindness for somebody, even if it is just this tiny little thing, less that it's going to blossom into some sort of amazing or whatnot, but you just kind of hope that they, and I've mentioned this in previous episodes before, that they carry that elsewhere, and not just simply pay it back and forth. While back and forth is necessary, it's I feel like you have to have a measure of both, to some degree, and it depends on the person, right? Sometimes you got to be even, sometimes you got to be a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But yeah, if you don't do that, and if you just kind of go, no, these people are obnoxious, I don't want anything to do with them. Okay. And I think that kindness as well, if you go too far with it, comes across as pity, and nobody wants to be pitied. Well, that's not true. Maybe some people want to be pitied if they've had a really bad time of things, but if being pitied also creates a very disturbing imbalance as well, because then it's because that's when you start to get into those people who are just thinking they're very, very lordly and they're magnanimous because they're doing this. Oh, look how kind I am, and just that sort of that moment of thinking that is kind of like that's no, that's not magnanimous at that point. Because now it's kind of like when you know, doing the kindness because like karmic wise, do a kindness so that you can get repaid in return, and you know, back to the transactional thing. Like, no, that's not right. It's a very bad way to look at it, because then you're not doing the kindness out of doing it out of anything other than behavioral, in the sense of, like, you're thinking like 3 levels deeper on it, to where it's like, well, if I do this kindness here, I may not have it right now, but there'll be some moment where it'll pay back to me. No, just no. You know, you do it maybe in the hopes of that, but the hopes of that is not, like, for example, yeah, the gas cover. I had to get gas the other day and saw a gas cover on the pump, and I was like, yeah. And I know if I had forgotten my gas cover and I went back to the place I got gas and didn't see it on the pump, I might be kind of disheartened, but then I would still go in. So my mind is, I would hope that somebody would do the same thing for me, because what I did is I was like, hey, I took it into the cashier. I was like, hey, this was on pump, whatever, and stuff. And she was like, oh, thank you. I was like, this is out in the countryside, and I told her, I was like, yeah, they may not stop in, but maybe they will, and it's just a gas cover. But you know, I would hope somebody would do that for like, if it was a, like, credit card, wallet, keys, what have you. So, fostering that sort of thing. But, if you're very angsty towards the world, much less inclined to do that sort of thing, where you start getting into the, let's say, mischievous, the puckish nature, the little bit more devilish behavior of being willing to be like, that sort of thing would be to take the gas can cover, or the gas cover, and just toss it in the trash or something. That's not necessarily withholding oneself, but that's a behavior somebody could have in that regard. But yeah, like, yeah, I guess, and I know I've said this before, but it not even just in here, but in other episodes, is that it is very, like, I can understand if it is something that somebody would consider unforgivable up to that point. Like if it's from unforgivable. If they do something egregious, unforgivable, to where it's like, nah, you're never going to be anywhere near me. And it's a lot easier to do with advents of internet and moving and traveling at much greater distances being physically or feasibly possible. And physically possible. Financially possible, it's a big question mark. Especially nowadays. But when that happens, though, then it kind of turns into this, well, if they do this, and then there's that recession, that receding into oneself, you kind of build up the walls and just sort of protect yourself. How far does that go, right? Because then that affects not only, like, if you're going to cut off, when you start to do that behavior of cutting off, and then if you have a very wide definition of what unforgivable acts are, I think it's a practice behavior that becomes easier and easier to then just be like, I'm not helping you. And then how quickly does that spin into having that attitude, but then putting it towards yourself? Like, I'm not even gonna help myself. I'm gonna just be this way, and I'm just gonna cut myself off, and just and then they just don't even have the ability, desire, drive to do that for themselves. And yeah, I wonder how likely that is. If it feels like it's becoming more of a thing, or if it's turning into this thing where it is so closed off, but like because it's kind of closed off, where like when you're trying to grab all the sands of time and hold them there, like with Edgar Allan Poe's poem, and still yet sand trickles through, kind of a similar thing. How tightly you close your hands to be like, no, I'm not gonna help, I'm not gonna do it, no. That's still sometimes a little bit of kindness ekes out, maybe in odd, weird ways. Maybe it's only for the little raccoons that come to your doorstep, and they're like, hey, give us some bread, and you're like, oh, here's some bread, little ones. And so there's that little modicum of kindness shining through. And the reverse could be said. Maybe in trying to do a bunch of with some people, or maybe a lot of people, they might say that very depressed. They try to make other people happy because they know how bad it feels to be sad and dour and just kind of on themselves. And it is that thing to worry about. Yeah, if you're, but I don't know. In the same way, I think it might not be as easy of a reflective thing to do. You're not really, with kindness, it's not an act that you hold tightly on, in that regard, because it's a lot more of a selfless thing. So it's a lot more open-handedness to give to, and not necessarily to slap somebody. Sometimes they might need a slap, but everything in due measures. So, but yeah, that is what I got for yesterday. Whew. So, thanks for listening, watching, all that sort of fun jazz. Enjoy your day, weekday, weeknight, weekend, and everything in between. I'll catch you next week. Yeah, and the outro tune is going to be from the game that I've still yet to play. It's somewhere over there. The re-release, I guess a proper physical release of Fantasian. So it is Resonating Hearts is the song title. Excuse me. It's a good tune. It's a good song. It's an enjoyable game. If you haven't played it, play it now. Play it now. Play it now.